I'm Madeleine Yayodele Nelson. That is Madeleine, the mother of Ayodele Nelson. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've been in New York since 1972 and planning to be here if it's God's willing for a while longer. I enjoy New York. I find that it's a place where musicians come from everywhere. So there's always someone you can study with and learn something new, and that's a very nice thing. Um, I've been playing Shaker Ray for, I'm not sure exactly how long, 30 something years. My company, Women of the Calabash, is about to start its 32nd year. So we started in 1978. But then I actually started playing started teaching sooner than I might have, because I found that there were a lot of people who wanted to learn and there wasn't a place to go. So I was willing to share what I was figuring out. And, you know, when you teach, you learn. So I enjoyed that. And I make Shaker Ray. I used to make a lot of things out of boards. And I'm older with less time and maybe less dexterity. So, and also gourds aren't as easy to find as they were. But I love making Shaker Rays because I start with a dried gourd. And so I'm imagining what the sound is going to be like. Before I even cut it, I have a sense from the dimensions. But once I cut it and begin to work on the inside, just listening to that voice mature is really, I like it. So each one is a little different, and I also enjoy that. Of course, one could always play one of the commercially made Shaker Rays. There's no reason for me to mention names, but they're heavy and they're fiberglass and they're made from a mold, so they're all the same note. And they usually have the skirts hanging down several inches below. So I think those are made for the people who think of hand percussion as toys. You know that term. Well, I'm going to take a drum and I'll take a box full of toys. And so those Shaker Rays you can throw in the bag because they're not going to break. But they don't give you what the natural gourd can do. So I'm fond of that. I had no plan. I've always loved music, but I had no plan to be a musician. And I was a school teacher, junior, senior high school, health and phys ed and hygiene and swimming and gymnastics and I enjoyed that a lot. And I taught 1 year when I came to New York, but I quit because although I liked teaching, the setting of the school and the politics of the school and all that was more than I could really do. Stop touching this. I realized that was, what can I tell you? I started somewhat by accident because when I moved to New York, I didn't have a job. And I met some musicians because I got involved in the filming of a movie. I got involved in the sense that I used to cut hair. So I cut the hair of these people in the movie, and I'm not in the union or anything, so I didn't do it on the set. But they came to me and they all got their hair cut short so they could look like kids of the 1950s to play these parts. But I met some musicians doing a music scene. Actually, at the time they were called the House of Nilaja, the House of Peaceful and Friendly People. And they were quite a good music ensemble. They played ashikos and shaker, and they played. So they did this music scene. And what happened was I met them and had never really had a chance to stand beside a conga player. Or just, somehow it's everywhere in New York, but it wasn't in Pittsburgh. And I'm standing, I'm watching them playing, and I'm really enjoying it. And I didn't see any women playing drum. And I began to ask around and began to hear those things that say, oh, well, you know, drumming is really male or something. Like, that's not what they said, but that's what they meant. A woman's not supposed to play drum. A woman's not supposed to put a drum between her legs, and et cetera, et cetera. All those things you've already heard. And so I thought, well, how about that thing over there? What is that called? Shaker Ray, okay. that sounds nice, and there didn't seem to be any outrage in terms of women playing. So I said, okay, this is safe. And I didn't play drum for years because I kept hearing that, and that was the opinion and the feeling of so many people who played. And so it was years later that someone started to was very comfortable with teaching me some drum rhythms, which I gobbled up. And I wanted to do it, but so many people had said women don't play that I had thought it was something that I would do. I wish I had started younger playing djembe, but I like it anyway.
What year was that, do you think?
What year was
When
that I
you-
started drumming?
Yeah, when you started.
Let me think. Because my son was a child. I had someone gave me a djembe shell. As a matter of fact, in New York, djembe was just hitting. You know, people were playing those Haitian drums. I forget the name of, but they're shaped sort of like a djembe, but in the middle they're cut straight, so they don't have a djembe sound. But people wanted djembe; it was catching on, so people were buying those and playing them. And a man, I think he was Senegalese man, came to New York and saw that there was an interest in djembes. So he went to the Ivory Coast and had 60 shells carved and flew them back to New York and put them in the basement of a store that I knew in Brooklyn. And said, I don't know drummers. He said, well, we tell the drummers that I'm here. And I told everybody, and they went down, and he sold them all. He gave me one for helping him. And so I had this djembe shell, but people were still saying women don't play drum, you don't put the drum between your legs, it's a male power thing, and I can't remember all the stories. So this shell sat in my house for some years, and I said, well, maybe my son will play. So it's a nice shell. I think it'll have good sound. I'll hold on to it. But I couldn't wait that long. I mean, you know, he was 5, 7, and I wasn't.
Was this in the 70s, do you think? Or?
This is yes. He was born in 74,
Okay.
So this is around that time, and so the end of the 70s. And then one day I said, okay, I don't care what they say. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to have a head put on. Let me try it. And I still have that drum. In fact, Michael from class took it to a shop in Brooklyn for me to get a new head. I wanted to go to another place. His drum sounded so good. I said, take it where you had yours headed. Because I find that even though women play, now and a lot of women play, and zillions of women play conga and play well. And there are lots of women who play djembe well too. But my experience has been, except for one person I know who's done drum work for me for years, but a lot of places you go and it's a woman's drum, they don't pull it as they would a man's drum.
Uh-huh.
So you say, I want it up. I know what kind of skin I want. I need a thick skin because my hand is not heavy. I need the tones to sound a certain way. I want a thick skin. I want to pull tight. And you get it back, and because they think it's good enough for a woman. You know, it's not the way he would pull his drum, or anybody who might possibly play lead or even accompaniment. You know, it's going to be up here. Never get for a woman. So I've had that happen more than twice. But shakere is the instrument that I love so much, and that led me to. I always like to sing, and I sang in high school and college choirs. And I just decided to found the company because I hadn't heard shakere by itself. Ensemble shakere playing I wanted to hear, and I never got that. You had 1 or 2 shakeres beside a drum or several drums, so you could hear sort of what the beats are doing, but not really hear the whole thing. So I thought if I founded a shakere ensemble, then you'd get to hear that conversation between the instruments. And also I like to sing, so then it gave me a chance to do a cappella vocals, and I don't necessarily have what I would consider a solo voice. But I can arrange the harmony that we all sound wonderful, and then I'll give the solo to the person with that, with that voice. And so the story I was telling you was, with this ensemble of drummers, I said, well, I would like one of those. Could you make me one? And he said no. So while I was inwardly reacting,
He said no
he said no
to making you.
to making me a shaker.
Uh-huh.
And he paused. He said, but I'll show you how to make your own.
Oh.
Which was infinitely better.
Yeah.
Because by the time I went through everything it took, and at that time we couldn't even get round boards in New York. They were the long ones. By the time I went through what I had to do to clean it and to string it, I knew that I wasn't just going to have it hang on a wall or sit on the table. It's something I would use. And I learned a lot from making it, and then I found that I liked making them, so after doing that for a little while, I decided to found the company. And it's been a joy. It's been a joy, and I've been to lots and lots of places in the world I never would have gone to. Europe many times. Did a couple tours in Germany. Been London and Martinique and French Guyana. And I've been to Brazil. I taught a shakery workshop at Olodu in Brazil. Now, it was interesting because they don't really play shakery. I met someone else there who played. It's the only guy I knew who played. And this is one of those things that tells you, you know this, but you forget sometimes that the same thing means different things in different cultures. So this is a 2-day workshop. And the second day, a roving camera crew walked through Pelourinho and heard us and came up and filmed us. It was on TV. I never saw it. But so I'm teaching and I'm saying, you got to throw your hands this way and you want to use your hands equally, use that top hand. And they were getting it. They played other things. They played sordos and things. And I was saying, oh, okay. And I had a friend there, Dr. Kim Butler, who teaches at Rutgers. And she used to be head of the Black Studies Department. She's on leave right now. But she had been a shakery student of mine. And she'd been going back and forth to Brazil for, at that time, it's probably 15 years at least. And she had published a book in Portuguese and English. So she went there to give the finished product to some of the people she had interviewed and continue her studies. So I went because I don't speak Portuguese and I wanted to go. And she would be in the archives all morning with her white cotton gloves going, and I would be sleeping or walking around the town and then get up and she showed me things. We went to Condomble House. We did a lot of things. Every time we went there, they said, oh, stay, we're having a ceremony. It was wonderful. Wonderful trip. But my point about different things meaning different things is these young men were beginning to catch what I was showing them. And I'd say, oh, good, great. And I didn't find out until that night that in Brazil, that means asshole. So they're playing well, and I'm saying, yes, asshole. I found out the thing that you do is this. So I was very busy correcting it the next day. I think they knew that I wasn't, but I didn't even know until later. They said, oh, you didn't say that, did you? I said, yes, but so I've had a lot of nice experiences. I have played for 3 presidents. Jean-Bertrand Aristide when he was in exile here. Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso, who invited us to Burkina Faso. The couple, used to be Upper Volta. Invited us to come and just be there and do some shows and have shows done for us to help celebrate the 2nd anniversary of the revolution. What an honor. I mean, it was wonderful. And he was a man who was not... he wasn't presidential in the way that people often think. He wasn't concerned about wearing the great thing and riding in the big car. He had a Fiat that he rode in. but he was doing so much to change the position of women in his country. And so he said he wanted the women in his country to see these African American women doing African music. He was surprised when he came to New York to speak, and we were on the bill. So we got to go, and it was wonderful. He was a really progressive man who was assassinated because he was too progressive. But he had changed the position. They had women in the military. They had women in the police force. They had he was turning it around, and some people don't like that. Some people would rather have corruption. And so 2 years after that, he was assassinated. But anyway, we played just this May for President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia. And she's a very gracious, lovely lady. You know, you play shakery, I like to throw it. Things. I've never played for a president where I saw the Secret Service. So they were there in the room, they had the little curly cute things going down and, and they're talking. And so we wanted to play shakery directly to her, so I wanted to stand in front of the mics because she was sitting in a chair over here by herself and everybody else had tables over here. So, but I asked because the last thing I want is to step forward and I'm throwing the shakery and the Secret Service person gets real nervous. And so I said, I don't know the protocol, may we approach them? And they said yes. That was nice. As a matter of fact, Nirvana got a blessing because she went to her and she said, bless me, mother. And she went down and President Sirleaf touched her head and said, oh yes, this is the way we do it at home. So the Yale photographer swears he's going to send us the pictures. We've played many, many, many times and he never has. Maybe that'll change. We go there because Dr. Robert Ferris Thompson has liked women of the Calabash for years, and he's been at Yale for years. So he will invite us up. We played for the woman who had been president of Smith and became the president of Brown University. Some people. Edward James almost, a lot of people.
This is at Yale University?
At Yale. So over the years, he would call, and it's kind of in the place where he lives. After the person does a big speech to the campuses, to the campus and other people, then they come back to where he lives, and he has a little buffet lunch, and we entertain for 15 or 20 minutes. Yeah. And it's nice because they send the limos down from New Haven, and we ride up, we do the shows, we eat good food, we ride back. It's nice. And he's an amazing man. You know Flash of the Spirit? Robert Ferris Thompson?
I'm not sure.
You will, probably. I mean, the last book that he did was a history of the tango. He said because everyone thinks it's this European dance, and so he researched it and showed not at all, and had old pictures to prove that. And so the drummer said, "No, I won't make you one, but I'll show you how to make your own." So I did that, and it's just, and then I found out some things because one, I learned 2 rhythms from him, and then he was no longer available or something. And the couple rhythms that I did learn, you know the style of teaching that goes like this? The person teaches you something, okay, then later you see them, they say, they're with friends or something. What's the thing I taught you? Show me, be on stage, show me right now. And I'm really not fond of that kind of teaching.
Yeah.
And I started teaching all skill levels together because I think that there are some people who have to work on finding the downbeat. And I'm not denigrating that. It's just you start wherever you have to start. But you can be part of it and hear what you're about to be able to do. Once you get your hands relaxed, once you get sure that you're not going to drop it. And so I find that it pulls along people who are beginning. And for people who are playing better, it gives you a chance to go over the rudiments, or to also, I encourage my students to be creative because it's not I have all this and I'm going to give it all to you and then you'll be fine. I want to teach you the technique. I'll teach you some rhythms and then you find your own voice on it. And so I encourage them to do that by, give us a rhythm or teach us something so that they're thinking in terms of not just I will receive this, but I can make it, I can do it. And I can be just as creative on this as on other instruments.
So when you first started playing checkere, did you find many people that played checkere to learn with, or that there was a lot of rhythms to learn? Or?
I didn't. I did not find many people, and in a sense that was good because it made me create, and it made me create a way to teach people in a non-threatening manner. Because my experience with Chief James Hawthorne Bay Ibai, whom I've mentioned, he and I had a conversation about that once too, because he used to teach by ridicule. You know, man, what was that supposed to be? He was supposed to be. He had a real low voice, though. And I find you can't, if you're afraid or if you're worried about making a mistake, I don't think that's the atmosphere in which to learn. I wouldn't like it for myself, so I don't put people in that position. And class is the place to mess up. You know, you try it. And okay, maybe everybody doesn't learn A, B, C, D. Some people learn A, B, F, and they have to come back. So you can get whatever you can get and come back and get some of the other things. But you don't have to be penalized and held in this group until you can get to that group, because it doesn't make sense to me. But I think the fact that I couldn't find a teacher to go to pushed me forward, which is a good thing. You know? And then making them help me, as I was just on the phone with your friend. When you make a shakeré and you're a player who makes a shakeré, there's usually a difference. Lots of people make shakerés. It's not, as people like to say, it's not rocket science, it's not brain surgery. But you can tell the difference. Because if you play, you know what you need. You know that you don't need to have the skirt way down here so that you have to do all this in order to get the beats in it. You know that for me, I don't want to bang on it. You don't have to ever bang it. If you clean it properly, if you drop it, it's going to speak. If you do put the work in early enough, the instrument is going to sing. And I also do instrument repair, because a good chord on this coast is sometimes hard to find. And breaks, you just put them back together.
Well, having done a class with you this morning, I noticed that how you played, to my mind anyway, because I'm a student of Cuban folklore music. It was very Cuban in that you kept your hand on the bottom of the gourd most of the time, and it was familiar to me, the technique you used. And I'm wondering, did you learn the rudiments from somebody? And then
I learned the rudiments from Abiodun McCrae, who's the person who told me, no, I won't make it, but I will show you how. And then he was gone, and I changed the way, because the style at that time was to, as you bring the strings down, then you wrap them around, and you got this really big fat thing at the bottom, which has, the balance is important on a shakeré. If you, for example, if you hold it horizontally, the skirt shouldn't all go to one side. If so, that means that the beads are uneven, and that's going to affect your playing.
yeah.
So I changed some things when I saw the skirts were made of what do you call it? Butcher's twine. And I wanted to see the beads more than what was suspending them. So I started using smaller and smaller and smaller cord. And then, of course, I wanted it to be strong. So I started using fishing line, braided fishing line, because it's pliable. And it can take that friction of the beads back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And last a long time. And also, back to making them look great, but not necessarily sounding great. I've seen some beautiful shakerés, and people are doing wonderful design work. Sometimes one bead per. Let me show you what I mean. If you will hand me that shakeré, I'll show you. And this is only, this is for me, and it doesn't apply to everyone. My particular taste is that if you have.
Let me stop you right here.
I find I don't like to play a heavy shakeré. And I find that if there's space between the beads hit each other, as well as the beads hitting the skirt. And so you don't have to necessarily work as hard to get sound. If you want to play way back and quiet, you don't have to make the whole skirt move in order to get that. You can get the beads to play against each other. And I don't know, I don't know if that makes sense, but I can show you what I mean. Anyway, and so stringing made me, as I began to string, I changed what I had been taught because I found, I just learned some things. And certainly, I think it's been a bit of an advantage to live on the East Coast where we don't get gourds easily, because that means you treasure every one and you clean it really carefully. And whereas I've seen some California gourds, which are wonderful, but they're so plentiful. People take them for granted. They just take it, sort of empty them out and string it, and all that voice that could be there is being absorbed by what should have been cleaned out. I also have, as I said, I founded Women of the Calabash in 1978, but I also have, and I don't remember what year, an organization called Egbe Omo Shekere, Society for the Children of the Shekere. And so from time to time, I get enough class people and try to give them performance opportunity. So we perform under that name, go and do it. For some people, I have students, several students now who are professional musicians, but I have other students who've never done anything like that. And so it gives them a chance.
We were just visited by the New York Pure Police.
That's why I waited. I was going to see if he's going to give me a ride or what.
In your class this morning, Yayo, you taught just beautiful rhythms.
Oh,
they were so beautiful, and I think at one point there was 4 of us playing, and we each had our own rhythm. And can you tell me how you have the ear of a drummer, I think, that hears that, so that the gourds are actually conversing with each other? Could you tell us how you create those rhythms?
It seems to me to be conversation, and even though we can both talk at the same time, if we talk at the same pitch and timbre at the same time, we're not going to really hear each other. And so I design rhythm so that this voice will speak and that voice will speak at another time, and these beats are going on, and it just seems to make sense to me. I haven't had music education, and so I've just kind of tried some things that happen to work, and I certainly drummers know that, and had I actually studied drum, I learned a few rhythms, but whoever put those rhythms together certainly was thinking of the conversation as any congas are playing, unless it's just noise. You hear noise, sometimes people don't know how to tune them, but so it makes sense to me. And then in performance, I often, because I have a few shakeries, I can
a few
use pitches that work together. So on the CD, I don't remember what, but we did something in 6, and the recurring thing, because we're just a cappella, there are no other instruments but our voices and the shakeries, but there's a recurring do 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 do, because somebody's playing the and, somebody's accenting the 1, someone's accenting the 2. Of course, you can go on down, but it just sounds better to me. I mean, you'll see people play right on top of the bell. The bell's going da 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 da, and that's all they play. Well, that's there, so you can play that, but you have so many things. Why not talk to that bell, or So that's how I think of it. And the sambas that we were playing, just if you hear that double thing going, it's nice to hear it go around and the different pitches and the different places in the rhythm.
That was really nice.
We're gonna do those.
Oh, good. So I just would like to have your take on, why do you think it is that playing drums and percussive instruments has been frowned upon for women to play? I'll say frowned upon in quotes. And it's not just something that's here in the United States, but it seems to be a global phenomena in many cultures. Do you have an idea about that, or have you run into that kind of discrimination?
I've run into it a lot, and my opinion, and it's only my opinion, but my opinion is that 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 it's related to the power involved with the drum, because the drum is very powerful, and I believe that there are many men who are worried about women being able to use and control that kind of power. It's only my opinion, but I've seen it so much that what would be the reason? Why would you not want someone to play, even to play someone in accompaniment part so you can shine? I mean, why would you not want to do that? But I think that is involved there, and also people love to repeat what they think is tradition, somebody's tradition. Well, in Africa, the brothers dance. I mean, the brothers drum and the women dance. They say that they used to tell me that all the time when I would ask about drumming. And I would think, yeah, but what about? But I usually didn't say anything, because I just say, okay, that's the place I don't ask anymore, rather than get into a back and forth about it. But I think it has to do with a certain kind of man who says, this is our power and we dare not let it go, because they might be able to play as well as we do. And of course women do, but you don't have a lot of men who acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm.
And so my take on it is the power that's involved.
Do you find, you've been playing a long time and been in the community a long time, do you think that is changing?
I do think it's changing. I do think it's changing as more and more women play, and I think it's wonderful. And I think that it's instructive not only for women, but for men to see that that's okay. Yes, and we can play, and that's okay too. And it's not yours. It doesn't mean. People used to say to me, well, why do you teach class and why do you teach all those things? Why don't you just keep it? And then when you perform, that'll be, oh, that's good. Except it doesn't belong to me. Even the things that I created don't really belong to me in that sense. I mean, someone showed me this instrument. And so I'm really happy about the fact that there have been so many people that I've had a chance to turn on to it. And I think it should go on and on and on, because it's a great instrument. And the day will come when we don't see people in bands on TV just going, which is so annoying, knowing what the instrument can do. But you've seen that, have you not?
Yes.
I think the word is getting out, and it's just fun. And it's something that you don't have to study and study and study to be able to do something pleasing on. Plus, Shaker Ray is useful. I play with jazz ensembles. You can play hip hop. It fits so many places. People have ordered Shaker Rays from me to play in church. There's probably in classical European music, there might be something you could find for Shaker Ray to do there. Hello, Mr. Helicopter.
I know too that there's also along the way a lot of men that have been supportive as well. So I want to acknowledge
absolutely,
that.
Absolutely. As I say, certainly a man introduced me to it, and there have been men who said, "Oh, after a while, you could really play that." And I think also to hear ensemble Shaker Ray playing now, as I do, which I never heard before, and so that makes me happy. Makes me very happy. I recently went to Duke University and I did a playing workshop, and then I did a concert where they had me do a solo and stuff like that. And there were drummers and a drum teacher actually who invited me down there to do that. And it was good. It reminded me of some of the old days, because after I played and did my solo and stuff, then the men played and I played with them, and they try to take the rhythm up and try to make it too fast and stuff like that. That's dying out, I think people are just saying, let's have everybody do whatever he or she can do, and why not? I think finally, I want to think, and I do think that we're getting a little smarter.
And do you feel that way across cultural boundaries as well? Or that a lot of times people are drawn to instruments that are outside of their own culture? Here in the United States, how do you feel about that?
I think that study is important because I think it opens doorways. Because if you're going to study the instrument, chances are you're going to learn a little something about the culture, which is a wonderful thing. And so somebody sees Zaved Zimu or Zemodoro, the Mbira, the larger one from the Shona people. And maybe, okay, in order to learn that, you're going to have to learn a little about the Shona people. And you'll find out that it's a spiritual instrument for them. And so that if they're thinking of, a life-changing thing, if should I take this new job or something, they'll go to a ceremony where they play in Mbira. And they play, and the songs are mostly 16 bars. And they repeat with all kinds of variations. But people go into trance is what happens because it repeats and repeats. And in those trances, they get messages from their ancestors which tell them what decision to make. So I think if you're going to study something, you're going to learn a little, and that's good. There's nothing better than learning about some other culture. If we were only, I'm an American, but if I had only things that came from America to deal with, and this country is 200 years old, I think that's fine. I think it's good. And I think the people who complain about that are often the people who don't want to put the work into study. Because people will come I've had people come, they're in town for a month from Japan, come to class, the 4 Sundays that they're in there, and work and write the things down again because they're determined to get it. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're interested in it, why not put yourself into it and try to learn it? So that's my response. I certainly did not grow up in Nigeria, where the Shekere is from, and but I have actually been given the opportunity by being on stage in so many places in so many countries to teach from the stage. And that's the other idea that I had with the company. So we didn't just sing songs. We rarely sing in English, actually. So I have to explain what the songs are. But not just to do a piece of music, but to say something about the people from whom this music comes and how they use it. And so everybody is willing to learn sitting somewhere where they're having fun. They don't even realize they're learning. But the next time they see an Mbira, okay, there's no quiz at the end of the concert. But the next time they see it, they'll be a little bit familiar. And they know a little something. And so, Women of the Calabash is called, we're known as a political company. Not political as in, I want to tell you who to vote for. But we talked about apartheid. And we sang in Gozi Sigelele, Africa, long before, long time ago. And when we do concerts, where the money is going to help the people in Darfur and things, you need to do those things. And if you have a platform from which people will listen to you, as in doing music, what better opportunity? I'm not preaching, but I'm going to drop a little, as people used to say back in the day, drop some science on you. Drop a little, I'd like you to think. You not only had a good time, but when you leave, you had a little something. Maybe you saw something you haven't seen before. That's often the case, but not always. But maybe there's some information there. I know that I think one of the first times I played in Germany, okay, most of the Germans spoke English, but not all of them. I would explain the songs and we do them. And the Germans are so, this is of course a generality, but it's one that's safe to use. They're so mannerly and they're so polite. I mean, in Germany, people don't cross the street if the light says if it's red. If there's nothing coming, they will wait till the light changes. They will not cross between, they will go to the corner and cross. And all those things which, but also their streets are clean enough that you could eat off them too. No one would ever throw a piece of chewing gum paper down. They just don't do that. But what I was going to say was the audience is so quiet. I'm saying to my colleague, boy, I'll be glad when this one is over, off the mic. Then the song, and then they're stamping their feet and clapping their hands and whooping because they're socialized to be polite while the music is going on. I had no idea they were enjoying it. It's just so, sometimes you forget those things.
Interesting, yeah. I think there's a lot of women playing drums now in Europe, as a matter of fact. Well, actually, this is a question that I've noticed in the last, 10 years or so, that there's just this explosion of women playing drums. And both
because it feels so good and people are finding out. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm wondering what your feelings are about that. I mean, why do you think now? I mean, we had it so hard when we were trying to learn, and
I think perhaps people, well, there are more of us who want to do it, certainly. But one of the reasons for that is there are more women who've done it and done it well. And women who've tried it and found out, boy, if I never play on the stage, this just feels so good. You know, to play some music, to be able to make some music and make somebody else feel good. And there's nothing like that. And I think it's very infectious and people want to do it. I don't know, other than the fact that lots of old stereotypes are beginning to relax. I think more and more people are finding out how wonderful it feels.
any advice for younger people coming up there?
Try all the things that occur to you. Just try them. You don't have to do it. You know, it doesn't have to be your life's work, but if you think you want to try it, go for it. Because I wish I had thought of music a long time ago. When I went to school, I thought, well, I wasn't a serious high school student, so I didn't have top grades. I had 9 grades. So I said, okay, I'll teach school because it means I'll have my summers off. That's what I was thinking. And I like teaching, I think, and I would enjoy that. And I did very much, except the classroom became like a box. But if I had thought of music then, it might be very different. I only learned to sight read a little because I sang in choirs and stuff, but I never studied it. And maybe I still would, because as I write this book, I realize that I'm wanting to have the music there for people who, I didn't approach it like that, but some people do, so that there will be both. So that there will be the system of sounds that I created, so you know which way it's going. So that there, if you want to read the music, and if that's going to help you, fine. Because the more things you suggest, the more people you reach. I never know. So often we'll sing in class, or we'll walk in class, because I encourage people to do the downbeat with your feet, because you know exactly where you are. Don't think it, put it in your body, and you'll know where it is. So we sing, or we walk, or we play in a round, or a lot of things, because you don't know how people learn. So I try a lot of different things, because this one will work for this one, and that'll work for somebody else.
So you're writing a book?
Yes, I am, and I must get back to it. I would like to write an instruction book. I have started it, because it's so much fun, and because it doesn't have to be a big mystery, and because there's more. You can play more than da, 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 da. So you play that, and that's wonderful. But there's so many other things you can do, too. So I am writing. And I'm encouraged by talking to you, actually, to get back to it.
Good. Well, I have to say that it's very much for me an honor to meet you. I've been hearing about you, I don't know, since probably the early 80s.
I'm pretty old, you know.
And I've heard so much about the women of the Calabash, and I haven't ever had the pleasure of meeting you, and it's really a great honor because you're an ambassador of goodwill. And
thank you. I want to be that. I really want to be that, because world, and as we take it around, why not do what we can with it? It's been a blessing for me, actually, and I just love nothing more than to pass it on. Because then the next person is going to take that and do this much more with it. And yes, it's not some I think the obscure instrument that it used to be. And I play in Bira, and I used to play those steel pan. You'll hear steel pan. And but shaker is the instrument that I love, and I love drums too. I'm just not that good. I play djembe. I play, but I'm no lead djembe player because I started too late. But we jam. I can play. You know.
I'm sure you can.
But you know, it's for me. It's about that conversation, and Carew, Carol Carew Thompson, often talks about the time. I'll tell this real fast. They were building some kind of state federal building downtown Manhattan, and they knew because they had old maps of New York when New York was a young city, that where they were putting this federal building was once an African burial ground. They knew that because they had the old maps, but they're digging there anyway, and people said, no, don't do that, please, or so and so, and they did it until they started hitting bones. And so what happened was the community went down. We started demonstrating across the street from the construction every day, and then they started having drummers come down, and we're going to drum, and we're going to say, this is not right. And so they did they halted the construction then, and they had anthropologists go down and with the brushes and everything, and we were playing. And one night it was, we're going to drum all night. We're going to make sure, and Carew talks about, for years afterward, we heard people say how different it was the night that the women were down there drumming. How the feeling was totally different to them because it wasn't the competition, there was the joy, the conversation, and the celebration. And P.S., they did stop the construction. They removed the bones. They took them to Howard University and studied them for several years. They brought them back, and Women of the Calabash was involved in the yearly celebrations they used to have there. And now that they've built the monument there, they don't have them. But we had the honor of leading, when they studied the bones, and they could tell from the bones where these particular enslaved Africans came from their diets. They could say, well, these are probably from the area of Mali, or these were from so-and-so. And they had bones with many with the vertebrae in the neck fused from carrying so much weight. And there are all kinds of things that they discovered from studying these bones. And then they had people, they carved these beautiful boxes about this big and lined them in kente. And they put the bones back, and they stopped in several cities between DC and here so that people could come out and see them. And they had horse-drawn chariots with glass sides so that you could look through and see these boxes. And Women of the Calabash had the honor of leading the boxes after the big celebration in Foley Square. We played them as the people in their white vests and white cotton gloves and tuxedo pants, and they were carrying these, and they walked, and they carried them away. It's hard to even talk about it. It was quite an honor. And so they brought them up to where they were reiterated. And so I've had some great opportunities. And I think that I'm just going to keep playing, and somehow I'm going to come out to visit where you are. I would love to do that because there's a sisterhood that has nothing to do with city, and has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with national origin. It has to do with how we feel about the music. And when you meet somebody, you just know it. You know, and so I'm coming.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to find a way. I'm coming out.
Yes.
You know, I like that.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
for this interview and being so patient too.
This was fun.
Anytime.
Except for 7 years ago, and they didn't rebuild. Brooklyn becomes a nice little sleepy town. Okay. That's what